uh, any specific questions from homework, past or present?
Can we go over number 6 on 10.5?
Yeah, let's take a look at it. Good morning, Sadie. Welcome.
Good morning.
All right. So which problem did you say? I'd say number
Number
is it number 6?
Yeah.
If somebody has their mic on, if you could turn that off. All right, thank you. Jen earns money for tutoring and working as a teacher's aide. She must have enough time for her own studies, so she can work no more than 20 hours per week. She must spend at least 3 hours per week tutoring and no more than 8 hours per week tutoring. Let X equal the number of hours tutoring and Y equal the number of hours working as an aide. All right. So what does this expression X plus Y equal then? Could I direct that question to Araceli?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Yeah, so if I've got X plus Y, this expression here, what does that represent?
The number of hours tutoring and the number of hours working as an aide.
In other words, her total number of hours working.
Mm-hmm.
So if 20 hours per week, she says she can work no more than 20 hours per week. So we'll put 20 here. What symbol would we put if this is how many hours she works and 20 hours is over here? What symbol would we put in between them? What does no more than mean?
Less than or equal to?
Excellent. So that takes care of one of the one of the inequalities that we needed to write would be X plus Y less than or equal to 20. And then we need to take care of this part right here. That says she must spend at least 3 hours per week tutoring and no more than 8 hours per week tutoring. And since X is how many hours she spends tutoring, she has to work at least 3 hours per week tutoring. Maybe she'll lose her job if she doesn't at least put in 3 hours per week tutoring. So X must be greater than or equal to 3. Do we agree with that? And then let's see, it says she must spend no more than 8 hours per week tutoring. So she could work up to 8, including 8, but no more than. So X must be less than or equal to 8. And we say that 8X is X, meaning the number of hours that she spends tutoring has to be between 3 and 8 hours, is another way of saying this. So over here, we want to put this in terms of Y. So we subtract X from both sides, and we get Y is less than or equal to 20 minus X. And then we go over here and we want to graph this. So I'm going to say this is 5, 10, 15, 20. And this is the y-axis. And the y-axis is the number of hours working as an aide. And so I'm going to put just I'm just going to put TA for teacher's aide over on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, I'm going to put 5, 10, 15, 20, just labeling my axis here. And then down here, since the x-axis is the number of hours spent tutoring, down here I'm going to put tutoring. And then since we've got y is less than or equal to 20 minus x, I'm going to graph this first like as though it was an equation. And I'm going to say if x is 0, just a second, I think somebody's trying to get in this meeting. All right. Am I presenting, Araceli?
It's facing towards you, like the camera's facing towards you.
I haven't seen anything that I've been writing. Excuse me.
No,
It's okay.
I left and came back because I was confused.
Please excuse me here. Let me see here. Because I have been writing, I just have not been sort of oblivious that I wasn't sharing my screen. All right, excuse me. Okay, so I've been trying to show you what I'll catch you up. So first I wrote x plus y equals, or is less than or equal to 20. And then I put x is greater than or equal to 3, less than or equal to 8. And then I solved my inequality over here. Y is less than or equal to 20 minus x. And then I was labeling my y-axis and my x-axis here. So for y, this is 5, 10, 15, 20. And then I put TA for this is the time that she spends working as a teacher's aide. And on the x-axis, the tutoring, you guys all see this now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Tutoring I wrote on the x-axis and then put 5, 10, 15, 20. So for the hours that she spends tutoring. So if x is 0, 20 minus 0, then y equals 20. And we put a dot up here. But if y equals 0, then x would need to be 20 in order to make that happen. 20 minus 20 is 0. And so this line right here is that the equal part of this y equals 20 minus x, but the less than part goes down below. And I'll come back and shade that here in just a moment. But first I wanted to take care of the part that says the x is between 3 and 8. And so 3 is this line right here. And 8 over here. And so because x is between them, we would shade the area between them. And that's the part that is expressed by the where she says that she has to spend at least 3 hours per week tutoring and no more than 8 hours per week tutoring. And then for the other part, it has to be below this line. And then let's sort of go over this a little bit darker to show where all of these things come together. This part right here is the solution set that works for all of them. So if you took this point right here, for example, x is 3 and y would be 17, and 3 plus 17 is less than 20. So that works for all of the conditions set up in the problem. If I took this problem or this point right here where x is 5 and y is 10, that's 15, and that's still less than 20, so that works also to solve this system of inequalities. If you work 15 hours a week, then, but so long as you're working more than 3 and less than 8, but also keeping in mind that the sum total has to be less than 20. And so that shaded area there is the solution to this situation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Did anyone else have any questions?
Do you think you could just go over one more
Of course.
just to like set it in stone?
Yeah, for sure. Which one would you like to go over, Sadie?
Any of them would be good.
All right. Tess, do you have a request?
Could we do 3?
Yeah, let's look at 3. Okay, Olivia's orchard consists of 240 acres, upon which she wishes to plant Red Delicious and Honey Crisp apples. Furthermore, during harvest, there is 3,200 hours of labor available. Each acre of Red Delicious requires 20 hours of labor. Each acre of Honey Crisps requires 10 hours of labor. And let X equal the number of acres of Red Delicious, and let Y equal the number of acres of Honey Crisp. So write the system of inequalities modeling the constraints. All right, let's go back to the same idea here. What if I take X plus Y? What does that represent? Tess?
Sorry, what was the question?
If I take the expression X plus Y, what would that represent in here?
Is it the acres?
So X is the number of acres of Red Delicious, and Y is the number of acres of Honeycrisp. So if I take X plus Y, that's the total number of acres of both apples that are planted.
Yeah.
So to write an inequality, because she has 240 acres, then X plus Y must be less than or equal to 240. That came out looking funny. Let's try that again. So that's a little better. So the total number of acres, X plus Y, that she plants, the Red Delicious and Honeycrisp, have to be less than or equal to 240. It can't be more than that. Okay. Furthermore, it says during harvest, there's 3,200 hours of labor available. Each acre of Red Delicious requires 20 hours of labor. So if I take 20x, just that one expression there, 20 times x, the number of acres, this is how much labor is spent harvesting the Red Delicious. and 10 hours for each acre of Honeycrisps. So 10 times Y is the total amount of labor that you spent working on harvesting the Honeycrisp. So if I add these together, these two expressions, 20x plus 10y, that's the total amount of labor that's spent harvesting both types of apples, the Red Delicious and the Honeycrisp. And that has to be less than or equal to 3,200, because that's how much she has available. 3,200 hours of labor will be available during harvest. And so so now we've got these two systems of equations, or of inequalities. We can go through and solve for y in both, makes it easier to graph them. So on this side, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. Y is s less than or equal to 240 minus x. And over here, 10y is less than or equal to 3,200 minus 20x. And then dividing everything by 10, y then is less than or equal to 320 minus 2x. And at this point, you can use your graphing calculator. You can graph it by hand. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use if you haven't used Desmos, it's a really nice application. It's like it's a lot faster than just a regular graphing calculator. So y is less than 240 minus x. I would just type in 240 minus x. Another inequality, 320 minus 2x. Now, normally when you type these in, they just automatically appear. And so if you can't see them, it's usually because maybe you're not zoomed into the right place. So I use my wheel to zoom out. If you don't have a wheel, you can use the plus or minus signs here as well. Then I've got this zoomed out here, and I can see sort of what it looks like. And if I want to know more specifically, I click on the red. It shows me what the y-intercept is, where they intercept each other, and then also what the x-intercept is. So if I go back to my graph, I'll go up 4 here. 240 is what the y-intercept is for this first equation. X is 0, then y is 240. And if y is 0, then x is 240. If you're doing this on paper, you can use a ruler. I would suggest you do. Trying to freehand it doesn't make it come out very nice. Okay, so when I go back to the other one, its x-intercept is at 320, and its y-intercept is at 160. So I'll go up to 320 and down to 160. And then when you solve this and you got y less than a certain amount, in both cases we see this y is less than 320 minus 2x, or y is less than 240 minus x, you shade below the line. So we shade below this line here. And then we also shade below this line. Here, and then we can say that the answer to this is where they both intersect. And so that section right there would be the answer. The thing about this then is if you've got this point here, for example, where they intersect, would be the point 80 and 160. So if you had 80 of the, oh, by the way, it's also a good idea. I did this in the last one, but not on this one. Just to label it, this is the Honeycrisp apples. And down here, these are the Red Delicious. So if this point here is 80, 60.
Okay, tell.
Was it 80, 80, 160? 80, 160. That means that you have 80 Red Delicious and 160 Honeycrisp. You could go a step further and say, well, how much do I make off of an acre's worth of Red Delicious apples, or how much do I usually make off of an acre of Honeycrisp apples? And that might help you decide how much do I plant of one versus the other. So you can optimize how much money you make. You have to be, you might make more money in Honeycrisp apples, but you can't plant all Honeycrisp apples because there are some people that would prefer Red Delicious apples, and you're losing those customers if you don't plant some for them. But at least you can see within this space how much do I plant of one versus the other, and keep in mind how much labor it takes to harvest them. Any other questions?
Can we also go over number 8?
Number 8, yeah, absolutely. So number 8, it says is perimeter of a base of a box is no more than 46 inches. The height is fixed at 10 inches and the volume is at least 1200 cubic inches. Tells us to let x equal the width and let y equal the length. So write an inequality modeling the perimeter of the base. So for A, what is the formula for perimeter? Do you remember, Araceli?
Is it 2x plus 2y?
Yeah. Typically, we would say it's 2L plus 2W for 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. But since we're using x and y to represent them, we would say 2x plus 2y. And that would be the sum of the lengths of the sides. If you think about it, you've got this is x, this is x, x, this is y, and this is y. And so when you find the perimeter, you're adding the total lengths of the side, so x plus y plus x plus y, which leaves us with 2x plus 2y. And to say that it's no more than 46 inches, we're going to have an inequality. But again, what is no more than?
Less than or equal to?
Less than or equal to. Excellent. And so 2x plus 2y equals is less than or equal to 46. Before we move past this, though, it's a good idea to solve for y. Like I said, if you're using a graphing calculator or if you're using Desmos, you want to have it solve for y so that you can plug it in accordingly. So 2y is less than or equal to 46 minus 2x. And then if I divide all the way through by 2, I get y is less than or equal to half of 46 is 23, and half of 2x would be x, so minus x. And then B, write an inequality modeling the volume of the box. What's the formula for volume, Tess?
Sorry,
You know the
what?
volume, the formula for volume of a
No.
box. I'll let you off the hook here. It'd be length times width times height. And so in our case here, we've got the length is y and the width is x. So I'm going to say x times x times y. And what is the height? I'll go back to the equation or the problem. It says the height is fixed at 10 inches. So I'm going to put 10 out here in front. 10 times x times y would be the volume. And to say that the volume is at least 1,200 cubic inches means that it's 1,200 cubic inches or more, because that's what at least means. So this is the volume, has to be greater than or equal to 1,200. And that's our inequality that shows the volume of the box. However, we want to solve for y. So divide through by 10, and x times y equals 120. Then divide through by x, and y then has to be greater than or equal to 120 divided by x. So at this point, I can graph this by hand. I can graph it using a graphing calculator or Desmos. I'm going to go back to Desmos to help me figure out what it looks like. So here, 23 minus x, 1, and for the other one, 120 divided by x. So I'm going to zoom in where I can see a little better. Zero 23 on the 1 and 23 0 down here. So I'm going to label this as 10 and this is 20. 30 down here the same, 10, 20, 30, and 23 for the one down here, 23 for the other. And I connect them with a line. And then I'm going to flip back to Desmos and see where they intersect at 8:15 and 15:8. So look, 8, 15, and 15, 8. Those two intersect each other. And y less than 23 minus x is shaded below this line. And y, the other one, y greater than or equal to 120 minus x, shaded above the line. And the place where they intersect be that little section there in between. And that's it for number 8.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Was there anything surprising about that with you?
No, I was just kind of confused on where the 10 fit in, but then now I got it.
It comes in when you start to talk about the volume, because the the volume is length times width times height. So we needed the height in order to bring that in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else have any questions? I'm happy to go over 1 or 2 more if you'd like. Yeah,
Can we
let's
go
look
over
at 2.
2? And then for like the shading, do you always shade it below for less than
Yeah.
and above for greater than?
It's solved for y.
Okay.
That's the way it works. Y, y is less than or equal to 23 minus x. We say below the line for that. If there's ever any doubt, one thing you can do is choose a test point. Let's say I choose, let's see, this point right here is 10, 15, and put the values in 10, 15 into the inequality to see if it works. If it works, then you're shading on the right side. If it doesn't work, then you shade the other side. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we're going to number 2.
Yeah.
All right. Bob's Furniture produces chairs and sofas. Each item requires processing in each of 2 departments. If you wouldn't mind, please turn off the mic. Thank you. Each item requires processing in each of 2 departments. The cutting department has 82 hours available, and the finishing department has 106 hours available each week for production. Each chair requires 2 hours in cutting and 5 hours in finishing. Each sofa requires 3 hours in cutting and 2 hours in finishing. So let x equal the number of chairs and y equal the number of sofas. All right. The cutting department has 82 hours. So let's go through, see, let's do the chairs here. Each chair requires 2 hours in cutting. So 2x is the total number of time spent in cutting for the chairs. The sofa requires 3 hours in cutting. So since y is the number of sofas, I've got 3y. And this is for cutting. 2x for the chairs, 3y for the sofa. And if I add those together, this is the total number for both chairs and sofas spent in cutting. Since the cutting department has 82 hours available, the total number spent in cutting must be less than or equal to 32. And then finishing. So on the finishing, they have 106 hours available for each week in terms of production.
Mr. Wada, where did the 32 come from?
It came from right here, and so it should be 82. Thank you. So 82 hours, this is the cutting. And then finishing. Each hour, 5 hours in finishing. So 5x is the time for each chair spent in finishing, plus 2 hours in finishing for the sofa. So 2y times for the sofas. This is the total amount for finishing for both chairs here and sofas here. And that must be less than or equal to 106. And solving for y, this gives me 3y is less than 82 minus 2x. And then divide by 3. So y then is less than or equal to 82 minus 2x divided by 3. Now, neither 82 nor 3 are evenly divisible by 3, and so I'm going to leave them like that and put that in my graphing calculator or graph them like that. Otherwise, it just gets messy with the fractions and decimals that come as a result. So I'm going to put them in as such. Over here, I've got 2y less than equal to 106 minus 5x, and then divide both sides by 2. Y then is less than or equal to 106 minus 5x divided by 2. So then the only thing left is to graph and shade these. Just want to go back and make sure that I have read the whole problem and making sure that I have put everything in here that I need to. The cutting department, 82 hours, use that. Finishing department has 106 hours available each week for production, also use that. Each chair requires 2 hours in cutting, that's the 2x. 5 hours in finishing, that's the 5x. Each sofa requires 3 hours in cutting, that's the 3y, and 2 hours in finishing, and that's the 2y. So those are our two inequalities that are our constraints for this. So going back to Desmos. I just have to make sure that I put it in parentheses for the part that is in the numerator. 82 minus 2x. I'm going to divide that by 3. Minus 2x divided by 3. And then 106 minus 5x. And divide that by 2. So those are our equations. 0, 53, 21.2. So that's the one line. The other line, 27 and 41. And then when we do our shading, because both of these are less than, we shade below the line for both of them. And then just go over the lines where they intersect. Maybe even darken that in a little bit. So that part right there then is the area that determines the solutions for all of the above. Like I said before, you can test points to see, does it work? You can test points on the boundary as well as on the interior of those sections. This point where they intersect, not so clear on this graph, but if I go back to my Desmos, 14 and 18. 14 and X. I didn't mark this, and I should have. This is chairs, and this is sofas. So if this point is the point 14, 18, double check that. 14 chairs and 18 sofas. If you plug that into any one of these 14 times 2 and 18 times 3, that should be less than 82. Or 14 times 5 and 18 times 2 should be less than or equal to 106. And you guys can test that out to see that it works or doesn't work. But that's sort of how you would do this. We may have time for one more. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for calling Jeffrey Groups. This is Karina. How can I help you? Yes, I did.
Can we do number 5?
What was your name?
Number 5 it is. Okay, Kathy owns a car and a moped. She has
Your name?
at most 20 gallons of gasoline to be used between the car and the moped. The car's tank holds at most 18 gallons, and the moped's tank holds at most 4 gallons. So the thing that you want to keep in mind here, for some of these we had to multiply them because if we were using
Okay.
if it says 18, no, like on that last problem we had
I have a jet ski, like
3 hours
26,
per
20,
car.
20,
No, 3 hours per chair in cutting. And so it gave us a rate, and we had to multiply that out in order to determine the total value there. But
right, May 20,
here,
26, JFK Las Vegas, Las Vegas, JFK. Special change for the return instead of departing 12:38, you're departing at 11.
Here we've got this is a little different scenario. So X plus Y, I'm going to start out with that. X is the number of gallons for the car, and Y is the number of gallons for the moped. And so I started by just adding them together because she only has the two
Yes,
cars.
departure
So if I
7
put some
7
gas
p.m.
in the car and I put some gas in for the
On
moped,
May 26th and arrives on the 27th.
then
7:58 in the morning.
the total has to be less than or equal to the 20 gallons of gas that she has available. And then I'm going to put the car's tank holds at most 18 gallons. So X is the car has to be less than or equal to 18.
If you decide to cancel your group,
And
you would get a credit, which is
Y
for a year. The
has to
credit
be
would
less than or
be
equal to 4.
for your deposit payment, because that's what you've paid so far. If you decide to make the final payment,
And
it would be the same.
if I take those three inequalities, then those are the constraints overall. So if I subtract X from both sides, I get Y is less than or equal to 20 minus X. Y is the moped, and
Well, it
X,
depends. Like I said, so your final payment is on April 20th, which is Monday. So if you can let us know by then whether you're going to
and X is the car.
you would need to pay your final payment. And then if you make your final payment,
If
you will
X
get
is
credit,
0,
which is
then Y is 20.
So if you make the final payment and then after making
And
the
if
final payment,
Y
you
is
decide to
0, then
pay
X is
it,
20.
then these would, like I said, go in your total payment, right? Will go into the credit. The credit is good for a year.
So draw my line, and then
Credit within the year,
X has to be less than or equal to 18, and so I put X
before that month expires.
down here equal to 18 is a vertical line. And X less than 18 is to the right of that line.
We do the deposit goes into a
And then
travel
Y
bank,
is
right?
less
The
than
travel
or
bank
equal to
credit is
4 is a horizontal line.
My pleasure. Thank you for choosing Jeffrey.
And so it has to be below that line for the moped because can't put any more in than that. And then the total, whether you put it in there or not, is below this line. Y is less than or equal to 20 minus X. And then you'd want to go over emphasizing which is the area that determines how much we're going to put in. So this point right here represents 10 gallons in the car, and 2 gallons in the moped. And that's 12 gallons, which is less than the 20 gallons overall. If she wants to get closer to using as much of the fuel that she has available, she might come over clear to the edge. And this point here would be 18 gallons for the car, 2 gallons in the moped. And that that'd be all of the 20 gallons that she has available. Or she wanted 4 here and 16 here. Which is this other point of this thing. That'd be 4 gallons in the moped and 16 gallons in the car, and she's used all of the 20 gallons that she has available. And that's that. What do you think?
Great, thank you. That helped a lot.
Thank you all for coming. Hope you all have a great weekend. I'll be posting another assignment, but I might not get to it until Monday.
Okay, well, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Waddups.
Hey, y'all, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.